and it's been a privilege to serve you. God bless you, and I look for our paths crossing sometime soon.
Wow, that was a really good book. What's going on, everyone? My name's Ver, and this is the Commuter Experience. So personally, I really like having a physical book, something I can hold, something where I could flip through the pages, that new book smell or the book smell in general. Anyways, last time I reviewed Think and Grow Rich. So I bought a copy of it. It was only $5 on Amazon for a hardcover. Originally, I read that book as an ebook through the app called Overdrive. If you're new to the channel, Overdrive is an app where you can link your library card account and then check out library catalogs from most major library systems, from wherever, and then check out ebooks or even download audiobooks. With this, technically, I wouldn't have to buy a book ever again if all the books are online. The thing is, though, you still have to put yourself on a wait list if the book isn't available for checkout, which, being digital, I don't know why that's the case, but I don't know. So now I know you can buy ebooks and audiobooks off of apps like Audible via Amazon, but why buy them when you could just borrow them for free? So with that, let's get into the video. Unshakeable is about achieving financial security and financial freedom through smart investing. Remember my review of Simple Path to Wealth? Remember FU money? If not, that's okay. It's just a nicer way of saying you have enough money to have financial security and financial freedom. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean having a high-paying job all the time. You can have someone who earns 6 figures, but they're saving no money, or you can have someone who has a salary of 50K, but they're able to save more than half their income, and then building up a fund where they only live on a certain amount of interest from that. Tony Robbins explains the simple way to build your wealth through index funds and compound interest. You'll also learn strategies like diversification to keep your investments safe, and you'll learn how to outsmart the greatest enemies to your investments:
fees and fear.
Here are the top 10 points that I took from this book. Investing's not just for the 1%. I've had people who've walked up to me saying
they don't want to invest because all their money is just going to disappear if there's a crash.
Back in 2008, there was a huge recession. The market crashed more than 40%. But the thing is, if you held onto it at the time, or if you held onto them, until now, despite that crash, you would have more than doubled your return. I've also heard people say they don't care much to invest because it's too complicated to learn. If you read this book or The Simple Path to Wealth, it doesn't have to be that complicated. The point this book is trying to get out from the get-go is for you to build a rock-solid foundation that is unshakable, so you don't always have to work for money. Eventually, you'll have enough wealth to where money will just work for you. The second point in the book that's mentioned are index funds, the simple and safe path to wealth.
Index funds are going to become a broken record on this channel if I have anything to do with it. Many of my people that I look up to, talk about index funds.
Would you believe me if I knew about a solid investment that on average would grow at a rate of 7% adjusted for inflation with dividends reinvested over the long term? Some people might be like, no way. I can safely say that index funds, especially ones that track things like the S&P 500, on average have grown at a 7% return in the long run. Index funds are just simple and safe, and we can thank people like Jack Bogle for that. The third and next point is the magic of compound interest. So Tony Robbins mentions a couple examples. The S&P 500, like I previously mentioned, has returned an average of 10.28% from 1985 to 2015. So with adjusted for inflation of a 2% rate, that's around 7%. Let's say you have $50,000 where you invested that in 1985. How much would that be worth now? The answer? About $941,000, only just $60,000 away from $1 million. That's doubling your money almost every 7 years. Compound interest, as Einstein said it, is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it. This next point is one that I didn't really think about, but it's one that's worth mentioning, especially from the book. Tony Robbins really sticks it into your head if you read this book that fees are the #1 enemy to your investments. You probably think that you need to have a lot of money to be able to afford a financial planner or advisor in order to invest. On average, there are people who invest that have those financial planners or financial managers that charge a ridiculous amount of fee. Let's just say you invest in a mutual fund that has a 2% expense ratio. If you were to have a managed fund like the S&P 500 that averages that 7% rate of return, 2% annually goes to the management fees. So you only really grow at 5%. And that doesn't even account for trading fees. Index funds, there's low trade volume on those. Like they basically track an index. There's not a lot of reallocation. Managed funds by, professional teams, or not professional teams, but the investment bankers that are looking at the market each and every day, almost 90% of them fail, or they don't beat market indexes like that. That being said, if the fund is being managed by those managers and they're actively trading the stocks on that index or that mutual fund, the fees that are associated with those aren't even accounting for that 2% either. So that's even more fees. You'd only be earning around 3%. So I'm a huge fan of the show on HBO called Ballers. If you're not familiar with the show, you may be familiar with the main character who's portrayed by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So he runs, or he's part of a financial firm that manages these athletes' money. Let's just say, because he's a financial manager, he earns commission on the accounts that he manages, or the activity that he does on those accounts. That's why he's able to afford those suits. What I'm trying to get at here really is just to keep it simple. You don't need a financial manager or financial planner to really manage your investments. You just need a simple index fund with a light expense ratio. Keep it simple. Next, we have market falls are normal. It hasn't happened recently. We've been in the longest bull run market for the last decade. If the market were to drop more than 10%, that would be considered a correction. This makes people uneasy. People start selling, and then there's a domino effect where people sell more. But then smart investors look at it as a time to buy, essentially buying these stocks at a discount. In 2008, we saw ridiculous highs, and then it crashed almost 40%. But if you held onto your investments, you bought even more, those investments, well, one, they were cheaper, and they would have grown more than double than what they were worth at the bottom now. In addition to that, another point is the market always comes back. So with that crash that I mentioned, or crashes that do happen or inevitably happen, the market comes back. Other events like the dot-com boom and the Great Depression in the 1930s, the market always recovered after that. And that's essentially the principle that I'm trying to make here, is despite market crashes, the market always bounces back. All right, so we're almost halfway there, but this next point is a quote. "Be greedy when others are fearful," said by Warren Buffett. When the stock market was tanking in 2008, Buffett was buying up stocks in the value of billions because he was getting them at a discount. Many fear stock market crashes, but smart investors look at them as opportunities. They look forward to them. It's not that they can predict them, but anytime it does happen, they look at it as if it's like a Black Friday sale. Does that mean you should wait for them? No, not at all. I think what you should do is start investing now with your research and have time on your side. Another point Robbins mentions is diversification, or a way to keep your investments safe when there are market crashes. Index funds are already diversified. For example, we talk about VT Sachs a lot here. VT Sachs is an index fund through Vanguard that tracks all US-based companies. Other investment vehicles that you can even further diversify your portfolio would include things like bonds, real estate, investing in other countries, which you could also do the international fund that Vanguard provides, which is VIX or something like that. The second to last point I want to mention that Robbins mentions in his book is emotional wealth. True wealth is emotional wealth. And he quotes, "What we really want is not money, but the effects that money brings, like security, freedom, and the comfort of being able to not have to worry about things and being able to give back to those around us." What he says is how you get these things is by constantly growing, either by learning or investing in yourself, investing in these other things, and providing others around you with the same knowledge. Finally, how to stop suffering and live in a beautiful state all of the time. What this means is you just have to choose not to suffer. It's a tough subject, but the point that I'm getting out of this book is that being in a state of high energy, feeling joy, happiness, versus a state of low energy, which is boredom, misery, or hopelessness, is not necessarily what happens externally, but what is happening internally to yourself. You have to control your inner state. Are you committed to being happy no matter what happens to you? Funny enough, the human brain isn't programmed to be happy. It's programmed to survive. We look for all the wrongs in our lives. The important thing is to just stop and breathe. If you can work towards being grateful and appreciative, you yourself can become unshakable. I really appreciated this book because it touched on topics that I previously read about on index funds as well as investing. Being that I read a book previously on investing, there are definitely some topics that cross over. I do know Tony Robbins has other books on investing, personal finance, as well as self-help, so I suggest you check it out. Anyways, with that said, you guys, please smash the like button until it turns blue. Hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell so you can know the next time that I post another video. Also, if you want 2 free stocks, there's a link down in the description below to Webull, where if you deposit $100, you'll get 2 stocks. 2 stocks, but one of them will be valued up to $1,400. If you have any books that you want me to check out and review on my channel, please leave a comment down below. I definitely read through all of those. Let's see what book I can read next. With that, I'll catch you next time.